and I am joined today by two of our amazing uh, uh, founders. My apologies. I was going to say devs, but they are much more than devs. Jihoz and Trung are here with us today. Jihoz, would you like to say a few words before passing it over to Trung?
Well, this is a special one because we're here in person. So I think it's been many years since we've done a town hall in person. Yeah, I think we had a really great response to the last one. So we want to keep up a nice cadence around having these. So we have yeah, we'll go through some of the latest updates and developments in Axie. We also have a few leaks reserved for you guys.
It
I
has
think
been some years since the last time that we do any kind of streaming together. So the last town hall was proven to be effective. So happy to do more of this so that we can connect more and then channel all the feedback into the development process.
Yeah, I think I speak for everybody. I think these town halls have been great. I love doing them with you guys. I always learn a lot myself, because the ecosystem is so big now, and I think these town halls serve a great purpose. Yeah, we've got a lot to jump into, a lot of excitement, those leaks as well. I'd like to hop into Origins first off, and first to talk about a little bit of a season 8. We have I think season 8 we had 20 new runes and 10 new charms introduced into the game. We also had some new mechanic changes with the crafting system as well, and I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on how that all went.
Yeah, so I think the feedback around season 8 was quite positive. I think looking at the meta was quite diverse, and it seemed like most of the eras, I think maybe with the exception of rare, had a pretty interesting and fleshed out meta. We actually saw throughout the course of the season DAU increase around 80% in Origins. Or obviously, this is also partly due to the bounty board. But yeah, Origins DAU is at a multi-year high right now. So, I think it seems like there's some positive momentum. Uh, Also got great feedback on the scraps system, and right, which was basically meant to address and reduce some of the RNG and pain points that we had observed in the crafting system. And yeah, we also had the Elite Eight. That was actually that tournament was the best in terms of viewership. So I think we peaked at a max number of 540 watching live on Twitch, and I think with around 800 people tuning in. So yeah, I think it was a solid season, I think it was one of the season where Origin started to actually start to grow again.
I think that's all extremely bullish, and I think if season 8 went that well, I can't wait to hear what's in store for season 9. Uh, are there any plans for season 9 that we can begin to leak out here?
You do have some. So for season 9, the first one that we will launch. So we already have the gauntlet mode, and we plan to add SLP as a requirement for gauntlet, and of course as a rewards. So actually, it was the original intention, right, to run the gauntlet with SLP. We already saw it, how it goes in the Ghost Colosseum in a classic, and we want to do the same in Origins. I mean, of course, the structure is the same, but with some new feelings of Origins. But then the team wants to like have a more kind of conservative start. So that's why we didn't put SLP. So after one season of testing, I think now we are more confident to do more with the mechanics. So that should be the first new things in season 9. Not too big, but I think it plays well with the overall ecosystem push, so that we can have a more healthy chemistry between different economic elements.
I really like the gauntlet mode, and I felt like the matches were really fast and dynamic, right? Because you're basically getting an extra rune, right, per Axie as well, right? So yeah, I think everyone was asking and excited for the integration of SLP there, so excited to deliver on that.
Yeah, seeing the success of the Cursed Coliseum and Classic, and it's exciting to see where Gauntlet mode is going to go, especially with the introduction of SLP. We have this new summer theme as well for is this in all battles or is this just for the arcade mode?
Mm,
It will be the background for all battles, and that's what I heard from the team. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. I love it. I love it. It
Is
fits
it
the summer
like a
vibes.
sandcastle or
Yeah, it's a
puppy
puffy
sandcastle
sandcastle, and she's holding the water gun too.
and the
I don't know
water
if
gun
you can
is
tell, but I'm
yeah.
very sunburnt. I've actually been spending some time on the beach, so this is perfect.
Nice.
Um, Now there's something else new coming with season 9 that I am horribly excited about, and this is the roguelite mode. So version 1 of the new PvE. I cannot wait to hear more about this.
Yeah. So one of the ideas that we've had for a long time, for years, right, is that um, Origins could be a game that fits well with a PvE mechanic. And actually, many of you may know that we've actually were heavily inspired by Slay the Spire when creating Origins, right? And Slay the Spire, of course, is a PvE mode, right? You can actually compete via the daily runs and kind of I think the leaderboards, but but it's actually a PvE game. So we actually removed Origins Adventure mode a long time ago, but we have some theories around right how to make PvE potentially interesting when it comes to Origins, right? So yeah, the roguelike mode will be a experimental PvE mode. You'll fight through different battles against a bunch of new enemies, right? So we're actually working on new art and new enemies to introduce through this mode. Each of these enemies will have their own strategy and mechanics to basically ensure that right, there's variety amongst different battles. Um, so yeah, you'll basically, if you lose a single battle, you would actually have to start over again. Players will have to stick with a single team for the entire run. And your Axie's HP won't reset after each battle. So this is also like a mechanic from Slay the Spire. Um, After each battle, players will actually be able to acquire different buffs for their Axie. Um, and yeah, there will actually also be like a variety of different difficulty levels. So yeah, I think we're excited to try out PvE within Origins. Um and yeah, this is something that we're looking to roll out. And we'll basically start doing some play testing quite soon for this. Anything you want to add, Trung, on rogue-like mode?
So I think first of all, we want to be careful with the expectations because as we start working on this, I think making a roguelike mode for Origin is not an easy task.
Mm.
So even though the team has put a lot of effort into this, I still think that in order for it to be a fun game, a fun mode, we still have to do a lot more. So we prefer to start small, but that's not without the feedback from from you guys, right? So that's why we want to lower it down like iteratively, so that we can collect more thoughts and opinions, and then continue iterating the mode based on it. So it's quite interesting that we like thought about this only until like very recently.
Mm.
Even though Origins has a lot of inspirations from Slay the Spire, right? We actually started with we begin with the PvE mode, but it's more about right handcrafting the content for every levels. So I think the replayability is not too high and costs a lot of effort of the team because it needs to work on every single level design. And meanwhile, the main play mode for Origin is PvP. So that's pretty much like some focus split, and it's I mean obviously and naturally, PvE is not something that the team can focus a lot of time on. So, but that was not in our kind of plan, right? Until suddenly one day we thought about, right? So if Slay the Spy is an inspiration, if we have the feedback from the players that sometimes, right, the casual players, they don't want to go really far with PvP. Sometimes it's too stressful, or they just want to have a fun game, something that they can easily forget and do again. Let's say if they have a very short amount of time, but they also want to be like to think too much, right, on the chain or something. Then I mean, with all of that input, it sounds strange, but then like roguelike mode becomes something like imaginable for the teams to work on. So that's why we started working on this. We did talk with some people in the communities to validate the very early ideas of the roguelike mode. I think it went well, right? At least in the way people like try to think about it, try to at least frame this in their mind to think if it's really makes sense. So yeah, that's how it is today. And we are happy to share like conservatively, but I do think that it's something um, worth putting a lot of like play testing, and it's exciting for Origin.
So I think, right, like some of the main requirements that we discussed with the team, right, is that the PvE should be roguelike, which basically increases the amount of replayability, right? So a roguelike game kind of has this idea of dynamic levels that are kind of maybe different through different playthroughs. And then another idea was, right, almost like infinite difficulty, right? Where it's basically like you can just kind of keep going and going. And it's almost like impossible to actually, right, finish, or impossible to really finish a run, right? Um, so yeah, I'm excited to check this out.
I could even
D-
think of
So Mhm.
a third option being, how fast do you get to
Mhm.
the end? That could be a factor as well. I remember speed running community in Slay the Spire was very strong. I remember
Yeah,
playing.
definitely. So even so, like even a PvE game like Slay the Spire, there's still, right, ways to measure and kind of compare yourself to others, right?
Yes,
Based on
absolutely.
how far you go, or how fast, or the number of turns, so on and so forth.
I understand that these are the beginning stages, the first steps of an experimental new game mode, but I am very excited for it. I loved playing Slay the Spire. It's probably my favorite game to ever play on stream. So if this can bring back some of
Mhm.
that magic, I will definitely chase that dragon. Uh, Now, for more, I guess, more future endeavors, I understand that there are some new mechanics that might be entering into Origin soon. Maybe not necessarily during this season 9, but, could you tell me more about Metamorphosis?
Well, so one of the things that we've been thinking about this year, right, is that we have collectors within the ecosystem, and many of our collectors actually want to play and use their Axies on a daily basis. And however, right, because, right, meta Axies are the result of breeding, right, so in genetic selection, whereas most collectible Axies are kind of born the way they are, right, or they're not like due to complex and optimized bloodlines. Basically, a lot of collectible Axies are hard to use in game. So we've had many discussions over the years about this dynamic with the mystic holders, the different collectors in our ecosystem. And so one popular idea that keeps coming up is to basically have a feature. It's kind of like Ditto, right? Where you have the ability to morph a card of a part on a collectible Axie. So this is something that we're working on. The number of parts that could be morphed will actually be determined by the collectible tier. And you'll also be able to revert that metamorphosis. It will also help balance the economy, right? So there will be various token inputs used to metamorph. So yeah, and so this will be released in Origins. The plan is like both via PvE and PvP. And yeah, so if everything goes well, the ETA for this is perhaps in the off season after the conclusion of season 9. But it's still that's like if everything goes really fast and perfectly.
Right.
Trung, do you want anything on Metamorphosis?
So yeah, definitely. Well, I think what's more important that is the principles that we have changed along the development process. So Metamorphosis is something that we have worked on together with the communities, right? The very people in the Mystic Mountain. We talked about this. Well, I could say a lot. And it's not the only idea, right? To put more utilities on collectible Axies. We do have some other ideas. But eventually, right, combining with other requirements, we came up with this for the teams to work on, and we want it to be implemented within Origins first to see how it goes. I think it's worth mentioning that, right, by having more exposure, by maintaining a direct channel, right, so that we can forward, right, and really think through the feedback from the communities with the team. It has proven to be like very effective because well, for this particular features, right? I think it's very important to understand the motivation of the players, especially the collectors, because obviously when we have some assets, let alone like very scarce assets and highly valuable, what we want is not to, let's say, buy a very competitive teams in Origins and then chase a high enough positions on the leaderboard. We actually want to play with our own characters, right? The Axies that we have a lot of personal attachment with. We want to bring our own Axies, right? So the Axies that we see valuable to us, to the games, right? And then do best with it. And so that's the motivation, right? And that requires us to rethink the principles of Origins because Origins is a very competitive game, at least at the current stage. And we need to think deeply about, right, the competition, the competitiveness, what kind of power could be right, acceptable, reasonable for collectibles Axies in Origins, what could be considered like overpowered, right? I think not only for this, many other issues come from the mismatch in understanding or the expectations, right, of the utilities of collectible Axie. So I do want to emphasize that by establish like a solid principles on how we should like consider or add utilities for collectibles within Axie games. I think it seems small as a decision, but I do think that it's very high impact. And yeah, we talk with the team, establish the kind of mindset slowly but surely within the team. So I think you guys also notice that those changes in mindset like steadily gets into the development qualities presently, right?
Yeah, I think there's been some slow and steady progress right on the collectible utility front. Still a long way to go. But yeah, right. This is all based on an understanding, right? That there are many different archetypes in our ecosystem, right? There are like competitive player, there are grinders, and then there are the collectors and the whales. And an effective and sustainable ecosystem, right, is going to have harmony between all these archetypes, right? And right, so I think like our development process is morphing to understand, right, that we need to be able to fit the needs of the different user groups within our network.
I think this
Yeah,
is
and
super
some
exciting
other thing
personally.
in the scrap system, I think it's something that we thought about in the team, right? How to make it more casual,
Mm.
how to like improve existing systems so that it better serve the needs of the communities. I mean, at the end of the day, there should be a balance, but nevertheless, we'll continue experimenting, iterating, so that we can reach like an equilibrium with the development of the game.
I think Axie Infinity's ability to experiment and then take the data that we use to revamp and recreate is sort of the strength of Axie. And I think this is a really exciting addition. Uh, the metamorphosis aspect is going to I think it's going to bring so many people who have these axes they're attached to that maybe aren't playing right now. I think if we saw the daily active users go up in season 8, I think whenever this comes out, we're going to see another big bump, in my opinion.
So I think like speaking from personal experience, right? Like with the bounty board, I've actually been playing both Origins and Classic every day almost. And one of the things, that pains me is, I'm playing a spike team in Origins, and I actually my PFP on Twitter right now could be with maybe just 2 body part changes, right? If we just gave this reptile Gaily Spear on its horn and tri spikes on its back, right? It'll fit perfectly into my spike team, right? So I'm super excited for those types of combinations to become available. So yeah, I'm personally excited as a user. So.
Yeah, it's super bullish. Well, I think that pretty much covers it for our origin topics. I think it might be time to move on to Axie Classic. Now I think Axie Classic, we just saw a little bit of a graphics overhaul. Um, I wanted to get to your thoughts on how it looks now and maybe how it's going to look in the future.
So yeah, I think Classic has been around for too long, right? And we all want new content, fresh look in like in even in a game that we have played for a long time. It is still one of the things that we expect, right? To have some new kind of feelings when we play a game that we love. So I think it's necessary for classic, even for myself, right? When I played classics, I feel like the color tone is a little bit, um, I could say, not too vibrant, right? Compared to other games within the Axie ecosystem. I understand, right, that people want it to be like want it to be that way, right? As a form of legacy, as something that they have been familiar with for long. But there's also other kind of functional requirements that we need to upgrade the game in order to be able to tackle those requirements. Axie upgrades, for example, right? Because it involves a lot of like the skeleton animations and the visual effects, and the sound effects of those skills. I mean, working on a separate set for classics would be very difficult, right? Because then suddenly you have double the workload to maintain that system. So we want to upgrade that, right? And it seemed a little bit off if it comes with the current graphic of classics. So we want to change a bit. We read the feedback from the players, and yeah, I think we have mixed feeling, right? People expressing that they love the current, well, the previous set of UI, and they loved how classic looks. So, I mean, we do think about that seriously, but at the end of the day, we still need to move forward like these seasons. So, I hope that people understand these seasons. I think it's all for making classic better. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's exciting, right? That for so long people were like, keep working on classic, right? So we're really in this cycle of continuous improvement and experimentation with classic. And yeah, the data is looking really good. Classic's DAU is actually up 223% since the bounty board release. And actually that growth started to accelerate with the new graphics update and the release of the new guild season. So yeah, I've been playing. I'm in a guild. I actually made it to top 100, I believe. So yeah, it's really been a joy to be back playing classic.
Dang, you're gonna have a whole bunch of Jihoz hunters up in Classic looking to pair with you now. You just you essentially doxed yourself there.
I am looking for guild. I'm in Winston's guild right now, but that's just maybe a temporary home.
Maybe there should be a Sky Mavis guild, you know?
Yeah, I kind of want to mix it up with the community though.
Yeah, I get it.
Got it.
Um,
So
So I can share some of that experience. So I think, well, one of the I would say weird feelings when I talk with the Axie communities, that sometimes I do think that we are seen too much as depth, right? And it create some sort of divisions between ourselves, right? I mean, the people who work directly on the games and people who enjoy the games. But it is not necessarily the case, because I think in order to understand best the motivation from the players, what they need, right, what they want, it's very important to have like empathy, right? And I mean, of course, we are willing to go out there and share the thoughts, share the discussions with you guys. But one thing to facilitate the discussions better is for us to be seen as a part of the communities.
Mm.
So I think that's one of the reasons why I bought the Kaido suit. I don't think I have spent a lot of time there, but I do want to spend time with the communities. I want to be seen as a part of the communities, right? One of us, instead of like being on the other side. I think that reduces the amount of, well, deep talks that we can have in some kind of conversations. So yeah, I can relate with your it's what you want to do, like being with the communities. I mean, you are the person who has the most exposure with the communities. So
well, joining a guild in Axie Classic has never been easier with all of the new changes to facilitate that directly in client. It's been amazing. What can we look forward to next in terms of Guild Wars and competitive season 4 in Axie Classic?
So we'll have the first guild LAN event coming up on June 23rd in Quezon City, in the Philippines. So eight different teams will qualify. for this, and this is based on 3 seasons of competition so far. And there will be a 5,000 AXS prize pool for that. And then the top 2 from the Guild War will qualify for something called the Axie Classic World Cup.
Oh, the Axie Classic World Cup, eh? Well, that
And then
I'm assuming that's not a LAN one as well, is it?
it will also be a LAN, yeah.
Oh, that's hype. That's very hype. No, I didn't mean to
And yeah.
interrupt. Please continue.
So then I think in competitive season 4, we'll be introducing something called it's basically a daily mini tournament. So you'll be able to play in 1 per day. There'll actually be 3 tiers focused on different player archetypes. So like noob, kind of like intermediate, and then master. And there will be a separate daily reward pool for this as well. We'll also be divided into 2 time slots, so we can have like both East and West participants.
So regarding Guild Wars, when I was still playing Clash Royale, actually my clan every weekend we try to find a clan with the same like kind of tier within the same tier, so that we can have some sort of clan war with them for nothing but fun and with like some sort of virtual reputation.
Mm.
So it's very fun, and I don't think that there's more social elements that we can get that we can add into the game.
Mm.
So this is not only right single-sided 1v1 kind of competitions. The mini tournaments, I can also explain a little bit as a rationale behind it. So when we look at the structure of the leaderboards in Origins, I think it's, well, of course we split the seasons into smaller areas, but it's still something that that takes like a fair amount of time for people to realize, to materialize their progressions within within an era, within a season. Right, you need to wait until the end of an era to feel some sort of accomplishment. Even though, right, we try to improve that by by having the rewards to people right at the end of the seasons. It is still not enough. So with Classic, we want to do a bit differently, right? Because we want people to really feel that they are progressing, and also don't want it to be too focused on the positions of the leaderboard, because it's I think it's very one-sided, right? The only thing you can do is to climb the leaderboard. So it's we need something kind of more multidimensional. So we're experimenting, right? Somehow similar but a bit different structure in classics. You climb the leaderboard, but it's for like splitting players into tiers, and then people can compete with each other in the form of mini tournament.
So it's kind of like a daily leaderboard, right? Based on like kind of player tiers. Right? Yeah, nice,
So
nice.
splitting into chunks, right? So that people are more engaged, and then still have some sort of the progression elements that you can checkpoint your developments along the course of the seasons.
Nice. Yeah, I can see that being really fun. As part of my daily routine when I'm playing Classic now, anyway, for my bounty board. So
yeah, I think incentives are very important, and the incentives in Origins sometimes it's against the activities of players, right? Because they want to maintain their rankings, the leaderboard. So with this, I think at least we have more engagement and activities. Yeah, there will be more iteration though, but that's I'm thinking.
I think it's really cool, and I hope it's also, I think it might also just add more attention and love to the in-game in client tournament system, because now anyone can really host their own tournament. And now seeing that there are consistent tournaments being produced by Axie Infinity themselves, I think it's going to be a little bit of extra motivation for people to get out there, get into the tournament, just get into the flow of things, and then we might start seeing a lot more tournaments even pop up from the community as well. So I think this is very exciting.
So I think
But
we did a lot of like land tournaments. I think the most in 2021 wide LAN events, I think are fun, right? Because then you can interact with people in real life, in person. It's not really a scalable way of of running the competitive system in the game because it's too steep, right? Either you qualify to a certain level to attend LAN events and actually accomplish something, or you don't, right? So we need something more like smoothing, so that people can really immerse themselves with the competitive aspect of the game, different tiers, right? And it's also better for people for creators to make content, right? Because then you have a lot of
absolutely.
different groups and settings that you can experiment with, instead of having to wait for something more official. So I think it expands the aspect of user generated content and how people like experience the game, in 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 a different way.
Right. I think there's 2 time slots, right? So, I feel like, depending on what side of the planet you're on, if you're on, North America or you're over in Asia and Europe, I feel like the times people are going to start streaming are gonna start lining up with each other, a bit more now. Yeah, I feel like everyone's gonna wanna hop in right when they are, getting ready to start their next, master tournament. Yeah, the potential for content creators here, I think, is very great. I'm excited to see what comes of it. Now, I think there's also some more leaks for season 4 of Classic, and this is a new game mechanic called artifacts.
Mm, yeah, so basically, we're going to be experimenting with a new kind of consumable and rechargeable item called artifacts. These are things that actually can be brought into battle. And what do they do? So basically, when you use an artifact, it will allow you to change the class of one Axie for one turn. And this will be, you can actually use this on one of your own Axies, but you can also use it uh, on one of your opponent's Axies. Right. So this would be some kind of like fun, weird mechanic that we wanna test out. Um, and yeah, basically you'll be able to obtain these via a battle pass, right? So there'll be like a normal battle pass that'll come with 18 artifacts per season, as well as a VIP, which will come with 45 artifacts per season. You'll also be able to get these from the different chests as well. As well as the wheel. So yeah, anything to add on artifacts, Trung?
So yeah, I think this is interesting because artifact adds a new angle, right, to the gameplay, and also to like a lot more than that, the economic aspect of Axie as a whole, right? The fact that you can own an items that you can recharge, and that I think that helps with the economic aspect
Mm.
as we experiment more and release more type of like consumable items within games, right? It might not be only classic. I think it will further strengthen, um, like how economic elements in games and in the whole Axie ecosystem interact with each other. Um, we do think a lot, right, about the mechanics of how to recharge these consumable items, how to also add some like utilities to people buying different stuff in the game. So I think we're excited for this. And yeah, it opened a lot like opportunities for us to do in the near future.
And you also, right, like will help to balance the economy, right? Like you guys are always interested in more, for example, SLP burning mechanics. So there will be some element of that with the rechargeability of this. I'm trying to imagine myself, right? It's like you're waiting for the strategic moment, right? To kind of, it's almost like Uno or something, or reverse, right? Where you basically change the class of one of your Axies or even an opponent's Axie at the ideal or opportune moment, right? So I think there's like going to be a lot of interesting strategy thinking about like right, the correct moment and timing and which Axie to use it on.
I
There will
think
be
this.
some tournament modes as well, of course, where I believe the artifacts will not be able to be used. Right? So
I think the amount of strategy is so deep because it's both an offensive and defensive option that you have. So you're right, choosing when to use it and getting the maximum value from it. Either whether that's I don't know if you can change yourself into a beast and then have more critability. Is that a thing? I,
mhm.
so I mean, I could see so many different ways that this could be used and taken advantage of in really good ways or really not so good ways if you make a mistake. So the skill difference is going to be pretty large in my opinion. I
Can I add? It will only change the RPS and it will change the effect. For example, like Sandal, it
Okay.
gives like 50% more damage to bugs, right? So if I change my enemy's Axie to a bug to a bug Axie, then my Sandal card will hit hard. And
Okay.
this will add more mind games because, for example, Ryan, you have a beast Axie, and I know that you're like collecting all your nut
Nuts.
cards, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I will have the opportunity to, like, if I have a plant Axie, a plant Axie, tank Axie, I can change that to an Aqua, right?
Mm,
But you won't be able to see it in the casting phase. So there's a lot of mind game. What if I change your Axie to an Aqua instead of a beast? So something like that. So do you want to
Right.
use your artifact in the end game, or do you want to use it like in the beginning? So there's a lot of mind games that's gonna happen.
and you'll have like you can only use one per game, right?
Yeah, you can only bring one artifact per game. So you
Got
need
it.
to choose wisely.
Thank
So
you for that
artifact one,
clarification.
yeah, you can only use once in the game, and artifact also has a bit of the progression elements because you can actually upgrade your artifact, and it will increase the durations that you can change the class of the Axie.
Oh. So so if you upgrade it, then your Axie you can turn your beast into an Aqua for 2 turns.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So it's not for the whole match, right?
Mm,
By upgrading, it will last longer.
mm.
And in order to upgrade it, I think you need to have multiple copies of it, right? How does the upgrade work?
Yeah, I
you
think
need
the current plan is to
you need to have multiple copies, and you need to burn some gold to upgrade the artifact.
there
Right,
will
So
right.
be there will be copies, right, and hold as the requirements at the same time.
So like say you have 5 or 10 of a single artifact, and you can spend some gold to combine them all, and then you'll have an upgraded level 2 artifact.
Yeah, that's what we heard from the team.
Wonderful. Yeah, this is super exciting. Yeah, the artifacts I think are going to add this whole new element of mind games, which is really what Axie Classic is all about. So that's going to make some ripples. I believe it. I'm excited to test it out for myself. But I think that pretty much clears out our info for Axie Classic. I think we're going to move on to Axie Homelands now. Now Axie Homelands, I heard that we are launching a new event to celebrate the Moonfall release. Who wants to take this one? Not too much for Axie Homelands altogether.
Well, so I think like so people are very excited about the Moonfall mechanic. I believe that we've gotten great feedback on it, and that we've been able to kind of iterate alongside the community on the adjustments. So basically, to celebrate the release of the new Moonfall, we'll also have like a special event during that launch. We predicted to go for basically 2 weeks. If everything goes according to plan, this should launch in mid-June. And for this event, basically we'll have like a double in the ticket drop rate. We'll also have free daily rerolls. So you usually get 5, but you'll actually get 30, right? So remember, with the new Homefall or the new Moonfall, right? It's kind of like you're getting this quest board for different materials and different actions, right? So you'll be able to reroll more during this event. And you'll also have double the gold earnings from Moonfall for the duration of this event. Yeah. Anything to add, Trump?
No, good.
Just to
So, yeah,
recap,
so-
that's June 12th to 26th. And during that time, there's going to be double the ticket drop rate, increase free daily rerolls from 5 to 30, and then double the gold earnings from Moonfall as well.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Well, it seems like it's time to start playing Homelands.
Yeah, so if everything goes according to plan, June 12th is the estimated release date for that, right? So I think you guys will notice, right, that our approach to Homeland, I think, has evolved and gotten better. It seems like, right, like month by month, we're crossing off those deliveries and items that we had put forth in the Homeland founder note. So I think people are kind of surprised, actually, that we're able, to, actually deliver on these things. So we're cautiously optimistic that we'll be able to continue delivering on what the expectations and the features that we've outlined.
Wonderful. Have there been any news on the full replacement of the NPC Axies and into the NFT Axies for the adventure mode?
And for the avatar mode?
No, for
So-
the NPC in the adventure
Mm.
mode. You said the NPC.
Yeah. Got it. So my understanding is we're still on track with basically replacing the NPCs with Axie NFTs. Right, this is something that I think the community has been very excited for, right? Because there's those NPCs always kind of seemed a little bit out of place, right? And the plan all along was to actually replace them with Axies.
I think, to me personally, this is more like a cosmetic upgrade. A cosmetic change, right? Well, of course, we add like the utilities of Axie and Axie level into the game, like more with this. But why I think this is a small change, right? To the like to the isolated game mechanics. I think it's the meaning is more than that, right? Because it shifts the focus from like creating utilities for some, let's say, not so relevant things in the whole Axie ecosystem, right? To things that we have had already. In this case, Axies. So, like I mentioned earlier, right, about the motivations of players. This is not a new game that people want to try out all the new things, right? People do have attachment with the existing beloved Axies and some other type of items, right? So they do want to see more utilities for existing things. And I think this aligns with that principles of development.
Yeah, so I think one thing that we also wanted to mention is that to bid farewell to the adventurers, we will also have a live ops event or some event in Homeland as kind of like a farewell party for them. So I think like so far we had like the gathering event, right? We had the cooking event, and now I think the next one will be more centered around adventures.
And do we have a date set for that yet?
Yeah,
Or
it's
is
not
tentative at the moment, huh? Oh, well, that's something to look forward to. We'll probably get some links for that soon. I think that pretty much covers. Oh, avatar mode.
Yeah, so I think people will be eager for an update on avatar mode. I think basically the main idea is that we estimate that we'll be able to finally launch the avatar mode at the end of June if everything goes well. I think there's some flexibility or potential for that to be pushed out a bit, but that's our current estimate.
That's exciting. Not too far off.
Mechanically speaking, this is like putting the Project K prototype right into the current version of Homeland, because then people would be able to go around, interact with others. It's not something too big. I mean, as a single feature, but I think it's more about right setting a foundation for the future direction of Homeland. And we have thought about this a lot within the team. I think after the release of beta, right, there was a lot of feedback from the communities. There was some disconnect with what people expected, and we released the founders note in order to realign that, right, and also to improve the sentiment. And I think why delivering is important is also creates a lot of pressure on the team, right? And I think right now it's much better compared to the moment right after the beta. But I think it's like the current development direction is still somewhat like more on the defensive side, that we want to right tackle some long problems like as fast as possible, and pay some debt obviously, and technical debt obviously, and also at the same time right setting the foundation for the future. We are thinking about like making it more aggressive, right, more ambitious goal, so that we can like change Homeland as a whole, renovate, so that we can aim for more. So I mean, why it's still a complex thought process right now, that's generally is what we want to do. I think like there's still a lot more work to do. But yeah, I think we with everything that we have committed in the founders node, we have delivered according to the like proposed timeline, and I think it's time to be more aggressive.
Yeah, I can envision right something around Homeland really becoming this kind of like territorial expansion and kind of like war game. I think it's like there's a lot of like open blue ocean right in that direction.
Something that like I myself have learned and then transferred to the team, right? The reason why people are so excited about Homeland, and people think about Homeland as well, the game that should receive a lot of attention from Sky Mavis, right? Obviously, we are like we are in like I mean, of course, we are from like a bit different generations, but I think our age, for our age, RPG is generally the king of game genres. And not only that, right, Homeland is a type of game genres that we can like put the full utilities of like Axie
Mm.
assets and elements within. This somewhat not possible in Origins. It's I mean of course you can still force that to happen, but
Mm.
it's quite tricky to put like land plot into Origins, just to give an example.
Mm.
So people want to see something that they can immerse themselves into, right? Something so that they can utilize their Axie characters, items, and assets. So that's how people think about Homeland, and that creates a lot of expectations. It has to be awesome.
Mm.
So yeah, I think that's also come with like a lot of pressure, but I think we got it. Like through a lot of hard lessons by now, and nothing is too late. So yeah, well, I think that's the general thoughts. Again, I think that we still have a lot of work to do, but at least setting the mindset right is a very crucial first step.
Yeah, so not too far off. This should be everyone will be able to start interacting with each other in this social environment. In the first experimental steps of it, it's only going to grow and evolve over time. And
And
yeah,
one of the things, just also to touch on avatar mode again, is we're thinking about like outside other than just walking around and visiting each other's plots. Like, what does a what does a more fleshed out gameplay loop look like there? Right? Could there be different kind of mini games or mechanics that are accessible, right, from avatar mode? So that's one of the things that's also being explored.
I think avatar mode opens up so many doors and possibilities. And if people have listened to some of the past town halls, like not just like a month ago, but like I'm talking about like a year, if there are any OGs in here, I know that we've gone through some of those potentials already. When theorizing about past projects, like I think Project T, there was some speculation about possibilities there, and then the old 2D Axie Homeland beta way back in the day. There just having that social aspect, I think, opens up so many doors and possibilities for communities to form, and for new mini games to be built, and different experiences to be had. So I'm very excited for Avatar mode. But I think that pretty much covers it for Axie Homeland. Like I said, there wasn't too much to go over with Homeland today. But we do have a bit to talk about in terms of Axie Core, specifically the bounty board, which we've been singing the praises of all day long.
Mhm.
Now, what does the future of the bounty board look like?
Yeah, so the bounty board has been interesting because it's allowed us to kind of experiment with systematically increasing the rewards for both classic origins, right? Even Etia's blessing and the fortune slips. And then seeing what is the effect on DAU, what is the effect on on-chain activity, what is the effect even on, right, the treasury. Um, so as mentioned, right, like since the deployment of the bounty board, Origins DAU is up 80%, Classic DAU is up around 233%. We've also seen around the 30% increase in ecosystem revenue, right? So I think you guys saw this week, right? We're experimenting with the Extra Rice program, which is basically an experiment to see what would happen if we increase the rewards from 10,000 to 12,500. This is not a permanent, or shouldn't be seen as like a permanent increase. This is more like kind of live ops with the bounty board. And so one of the things that we're looking about is like, okay, nice. The bounty board has worked so far in a way that we imagined when building it. But how do we double down on this concept, or how do we get to the next level? How do we incentivize even more valuable activities within the ecosystem, right? So remember earlier we talked about how we have like free to play, kind of like more free to play players who are grinders, who are also looking to learn about blockchain and earn some tokens, right? Then we also have the collectors, the whales, and the spenders. So one of the things that we're thinking about is basically how do we create some sort of a bounty board like system for these higher value activities, I guess, within the ecosystem, without taking away from the success that the current bounty board has had. And the strategy that we aligned on internally around this was to basically create a new bounty board that targets a different kind of. So right now, the name for this is the Premier Bounty Board. And it's basically something that will have its totally separate reward pool. And it will also work a bit different than the current bounty board. So basically, the Premier Bounty Board will be something that you actually need to unlock. So you'll be able to unlock it by either paying fortune slips or by completing a certain percentage, a high percentage of the standard bounty board, right? So basically, you can get it by owning collectibles and rolling slips, or by being a very diligent user of the standard bounty board. And so basically, everyone will get 5 quests a day from a pool, right? So it's a little bit more like the Pixels task board, right? Where there's random quests rather than the standard bounty board where there's the same 4 quests every day. And these quests are basically going to be things like buying an Axie, breeding an Axie, even evolving an Axie, or feeding Coco, right? Can even involve playing other games, right? I remember a lot of people were asking for Homeland integration with the bounty board as well, right? In the last town hall, right, you guys even mentioned a calorie tracker or a step counter for Homeland to be integrated into the bounty board. So those are all things that are definitely on the table. And you'll actually also be able to re-roll by paying. So you'll be able to re-roll the 5 quests by paying a certain number of slips. I think we haven't aligned on that final number. Yeah, there will be 1 fixed quest per week, right? So this was my way to make it so that we could have 1 kind of featured quests each week to ensure that there's at least 1 thing that we're really promoting, right? Oh, maybe we have a new Axie game that we really want to drive traffic to. Maybe even in the future, some other game might want to even pay us for that slot, right? It's kind of, the bounty board is maybe becoming something like an advertising network, right? So yeah, I think that's mainly what I wanted to say about the Premier Bounty Board. Anything to add, Trung?
I think this is your like your child and then
Badges. Okay. So basically, yeah, so one of the reasons that some people are completing the bounty board, even though, right, they don't need the, I don't know, 0.4 AXS per week, is, right, they like the routine. They like the routine of playing Axie every day. And, right, there's some like pleasure of completion, right, and having good habits and almost like doing like your duty as a Lunasian. And so we'll also be introducing some badges that will basically give you badges and tiers based on how many quests you're completing. Yeah, and then we'll also be adding like more detailed analytics for the standard bounty board, or the bounty board in general, right? Which will give you like your percentile placement at the end of the week, your completion chart, a variety of different stats like your highest streak, your lifetime total accumulated points.
There's going to be a
So,
whole
yeah.
lot of people bragging on Twitter about how good their streaks are and how high their percentage is as soon as this comes out.
Yeah, I mean, so I think like, one of the things, right, is like we want to help people learn about blockchain and crypto. Right, we believe that, right, crypto is a vessel for economic freedom, and until Axie, until Ronin, there hasn't been a way to get that to everyday people, right? And we feel like we've been blessed to be able to introduce this technology to people, right? And I think like we're seeing with the bounty board that people are right really creating awesome routines, physical health, completing the bounty board, right? You saw Zio's graphic, right? And we now even have the challenge, right? So there's something about right like having a daily routine, self-improvement that's kind of like part of what it means to be a Lunasian. So
Awesome. Well, it looks like there's some exciting stuff ahead. Premium bounty board, new badges, and even the record showing the history. All stuff to look forward to. But that's not all in terms of Axie Core. There's also a bit to talk about in terms of the Luna's Landing plot mint. Who wants to take this one?
Well, hold the hype. Yeah, I think the bounty board, well, it's not only a light incentive for the users, but also a light incentive for the ecosystem, or even for us, the people who work directly on the products of the games. I think one thing that we could learn from the dashboard from Pixels is that they're able to put a price tag on like any materials, any type of materials, any type of actions that leads to those materials, and that creates a fully connected ecosystem, a fully connected economic scenes within the game itself. It's actually much harder for Axie when we have multiple games at the same time, but by having the bounty board, I think it unified the understanding about those games, the need of those users, or the understanding about the needs of users, so that we can course correct, I think, much more quickly, like what people love, what people like don't like in general, or anyone to increase the efficiency of the wave of users that comes to the game to do something. It's still like far at this point, but I think that by being more fine-grained with the type of action we want people to do, even right within the game, that could create a lot of aligned incentives for different games, and for users themselves. So I think design from that perspective is very important, because then it's not fixing problems using a bandage solution. It's more about designing um, the whole economy and system, so that we can do what we want to do, and still takes a lot of benefits out of it, not only for ourselves but also to develop the Axie ecosystem as a whole. So that's what I see from the bounty board. Jeff and Leo have worked on this, and also people from our team. I think they are also excited for this, for delivering this too. Okay. Enough of the hyping stuff. Now we get back to the bomb.
All right,
But
so
yeah, I think before going into this, before we talk like in details about the mint of Luna's Landing plot, well, when I think about this, I don't think we have the same kind of understanding or expectations, because we have so many things to do, and it's hard to know which one needs more attention. Nevertheless, I think we do have some rooms to breathe now, and this one comes in times, so we decided to spend some time to work on this. It's not trivial, so but I do think that it has high impact.
I think so something we didn't really mention, right, is that we finally had the first successful vote in Axie history, and the community delivered an initial version of the Axie score, right? So And I think like that's also a catalyst to like, oh, right, like would be great to get some Axie score for owning Luna's landing plot. And so yeah,
Do you know what I like about it?
what do you like?
So it's not only like an our problem kind of thing. It's also your problem, right? To develop
Mm.
the X ecosystem. So that's what I like.
Yeah, I guess like we didn't really talk too much about governance, but like yeah, how did you feel about like kind of watching the process unfold?
I like that I don't have spent a lot of effort.
Yeah, so I think like one of the interesting things, right? So Trung and I were both on the Axie Score Council, but we didn't have to basically kind of try to force things through or right. It was really collaborative and it was very very much community driven, and I think we were yeah we found it interesting that right we basically alerted the town builders and the contributors that hey, this is something that needs to happen, or this is what we're thinking, and it was relatively well organized and was able to basically happen along the timeline that we needed. So that was really awesome. Congrats to everybody who voted. Um, yeah, I think it's really a landmark moment for the community in more like a symbolic way, to be honest. Obviously, right, like Access is a governance token, and one of the key utilities for it is to use it to vote. And but always we've had this idea of the Axie score to basically make it so that you have some reputational modifier within the ecosystem, modifying your voting power. It can't just be a function of how much AXS you own. And so I think we went from in many ways being right kind of slow on governance to I think in some ways being actually ahead of the curve relative to anything else we've seen, especially in like Web3 gaming governance out there. So excited to keep learning, iterating, working with it working on it with you guys.
Slowly but surely, then all at once.
Yeah.
I don't think this is like one of those type of moments.
Cool.
Well, awesome. I think that pretty much covers it for the majority of our discussion. Unless you guys want to say anything else.
I think one thing that we want to call out is that Winston or POS2 will contact all Luna Landing plot holders. So keep an eye out for for that outreach.
He may have already thrown it into the side chat there.
Okay.
But yeah, okay. But he will reach out as well. Perfect. Awesome. So let's move on to some of the audience submitted questions. I'll read off some of the questions here for you all to answer. This first one is from Quazing Life. They write, will it be possible for Ronin/Sky Mavis to produce a product like a cell phone Android with Axie Ronin brand? If it is, then when can we buy it?
Well, we already do a lot. I think we're the only, right? We have a marketplace. We have 2 NFT marketplaces, really. We have a wallet. There is a lot of different products that we've worked on over the years. So I don't know. I think on one side or one angle is like, we already have a lot to focus on, and adding something that's hardware adds a lot of complexity, but you can never say never, right? Like maybe somewhere down the line.
Maybe we start with a phone case before we build a whole phone.
I think like we're one of the largest sources of demand for that. Like, what is that device that everyone is getting, right?
The Steam Deck that's better than a Steam Deck.
Yeah. So I think there's something maybe around that, right? It's like a better device for playing mobile games or desktop games on a kind of mobile device. So.
Right.
I mean, in my personal opinion, it's best to, let's say, one day have a branded version of an existing phone line, right? It's way easier because we don't have to work on the phone from scratch. We don't have to go with any OEM solutions that might not match the quality expectations that like all of us, right? Not only Scambivis, but also you guys expect. So that's how I think about it. But I still think that this requires a lot of effort. It's not that straightforward. And yeah, I think we're open to own ideas. So let's say if you guys have any connections or proposals, or even better, if you guys can also push this forward so that we only have to, right, say that win, then it's the best. But yeah, I do think that focusing on a little bit less things with better qualities, with more follow-ups, it could be better, at least for now.
Yeah, yeah, I can see it. Yeah. Brand deals, I could definitely see it. But building an entirely new device is definitely a hurdle that I don't think anyone's ready to tackle at the moment. But a brand deal, yeah, that's very possible. So if anyone is in connections with the phone companies, you know who to hit up. Trung's, I don't know if his DMs are open, but you can get in contact some way. This next question is from NJ. Game development in Origin is slow and underwhelming. There are so many unusable cards in the current meta. Can we at least add more man development power for this game? So I guess I don't know if NJ played season 8, but it seems like the the meta was a lot more complex in season 8. But you know, I think it's impossible to get to the point where every single card in a game is always going to have the best utility, right?
I think,
Uh,
well, obviously we want to push ourselves.
of
And
course.
but I think we also need to have an understanding of, how metas and card games work. And I think it's quite rare to have a card game with, more than 3 or 4 top kind of decks. So I think like Origin, especially in some of the different eras. I think maybe Epic and Mystic. I think in terms of card games, probably up there when it comes to meta diversity. Yeah, but this we understand. I think like part of this feeling that NJ has is right. You might have some desire to use some certain Axie, right? Your favorite Axie, right? And you're like, when is my Axie gonna be strong, right? So I think that's something that we understand and relate to.
Right, right. And I think that we already talked a lot today about some of the changes in Origin. I think that also goes to answer some of that question as well. This next one is Mr. Yoso. And he says, when will summer Axies have utility besides being little bro of all the other collectible Axies?
Well, the utility for these collectibles needs to be proportionate, right, to their supply, and it's kind of like a function of supply and floor price. So yeah, we understand that a lot of people own summer Axies. I think, to be honest, I think with the bounty board, we just gave fortune slips more utility, right? So we have seen a lot more people buying summer Axies recently. So and yeah, and I think we touched on, right, collectible utility and some of the principles driving that, and our commitment to experimenting more and shipping more.
All right. Yeah, I mean we've seen it increase. Um, let's see. The next one, Mimi, comes from Mimi. She says, instead 2 weeks, how about make a weekly event? Because 2 week events is exhausting. So I guess she wants shorter events.
This is for Homelands, right?
Homeland.
Mm.
So we also receive another questions, a longer version of this from Park that maybe we don't have enough to go through in details. But so based on my playing experience in some other games, right? Normally, if it's a complex event that requires you to do potentially multiple tries, right, to optimize the score, then normally an event like that lasts from like 3 to 4 days, not even a week. And the number of tries range from having 3 per day, right? So at least you have some sort of, let's say, new buff each day, and then you can use that to optimize your tries, or it could be a total of 3 for the whole event. So you have, right, 3 to 4 days to arrange your time, right, get into the zone and then perform best in your tries. But nevertheless, I think that, right, the current like effort requirement for these events, for this type of event in Homeland, is more than the benchmark of other games. So I think we are aware of that. But one of the trade-off that we need to make here, right, is to make sure that people have enough engagement and activities. So not the best if we have to, right, force that a bit with the duration of the event. But as we have more things for people to do, right, for example, different type of events that we can rotate, right, then I think that's when we have more of the materials to trick the structure so that we have better experience playing those events. So yeah, in short, I think we are aware, and we'll try to optimize when we have like more materials to balance with other trade-off.
I think, right, like we already shown that we're also like, very open to taking the feedback of the community. For example, I think we already shortened it, right, from to 2 hours per day in terms of the session. So it will require more iteration and experimentation for these Homeland live ops events.
Well, I have to admit that we use these events, right, to maintain the the feeling when people play the games, right? So they have something to do. Why we can spend time to release like other features. So I mean, that's a trade-off, right? Because let's say if we just shorten the events without like anything else to fill the gap, then it might brings a different kind of feeling. But yeah, but that's just my take.
Yeah, there might be a lack of content, right? If the events are too short, as we work on some of the longer term feature additions.
Awesome. We'll move on to Deck Creative's question. They ask, when will Axie experience and evolution have effect in other games than Origin? Will progression have value on the ecosystem overall?
So this is also something we have discussed a lot within Sky Mavis. So we see, right, running Axie Core together with all Axie games, sometimes not only from us, but also from like community builders and partners. I think it's like running like a fairly big supply chain, right? And to maintain a lot of moving parts at the same time, that requires a lot of coordination. And it's not straightforward at all, right? Because sometimes we have to make sure that the resources in some game team are enough, right, to keep up with the whole release plan of Axie Core. So I think right now we decide to save ourselves some headache by like decouple, right, the release process a little bit. So there might be, right, a difference in timeline between different games. So as we look more into this, there's just also some other requirements, some other like prerequisites that we need to fulfill before we can implement the progressions in some games. It could be, right, the part about game design as we see in Homeland, how to really integrate that in a meaningful way to the game. Or it could be something else as in Classic, right, that we need to upgrade the graphic systems so that we can use the new version of the Axie mixer, right, the technical system that powers the graphics, animations, visual effect, etc. of Axie within Axie games. So all of those things affect the timeline. Why we keep a close eye on this, and it's actually one of the very important aspect of unifying, right, the ecosystem of Axie. It's still a complex process. So in short, this is one of our priorities, but it's definitely complex.
Yeah, we definitely want more Axie core integration. And yeah, I think the fees to the treasury from the ascension and evolution have been very steady and even increasing over time, and so it's I think good for the economy as well, right, to have more integration. But um, there sometimes, right, there are requirements that must be achieved before being able to prioritize that.
It's funny. Our last question was about when will aspects of origin radiate into the rest of the ecosystem. And this question is more about how something from classic when will something from classic radiate into origin. So this question comes from Wolf Academy, and when guilds on Axie Origins. So I think they're referring to the guild system that we have in place for Axie Classic. Are there any plans to introduce an in-client guild system for Axie Origins?
So it's one of the items that we want to do. But I think eventually we decided that we should focus on experimenting with the roguelike mode first. I do think that guild opens a lot more possibilities for origins. So we're still thinking about that. Like when should be the best structure of timeline for the team to work on this.
I think like one other way to think about it though is like, or a classic has like lending, right? Guilds and lending of Axies kind of built into the client. But there's also like other ways to do that, right? So the governance proposal that we passed is related to Axie delegation. So there is also like the ability to maybe every game doesn't need to create its own guild system, and we could have more of like a guild system that emanates from app.axie, for example, right?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. All right, this next question comes from Jaratsi. They ask, "Oh, what happened to the lore and stories of Axie? Will this continue? Does Axie have a plan to have more comics or manga like we did I think during the evolutionary launch, we had some wonderful comics. Um, and they said, or will this prevail in PvE in Origins?"
Well, we definitely plan to. We're still working on the lore, and we do have plans to have more comics. For what our approach right now for the lore, right, is like, oh, how do we integrate it into some way that affects like a major launch, right? Just like we had it as a way to amplify and support the part evolution launch.
Yeah, if you see Axie as an IP, then of course we have different mechanisms, right, to present, to deliver the IP to the audience. So comic manga is one of the mechanisms. We do want to experiment more, but it's also a matter of priorities. At least we show what we can do, right? And right now, like Jeff said, the approach is to pay it with like major launches, right? So at least we add more meanings to the release of the comic. But yeah, so that's the general direction for now.
All right.
I mean, if I am to decide, of course, I want to like read, for example, 100, 200 chapters of One Piece at once, but I think they take like years and years to like. So I mean, cannot have that right now. In the Axie world, even though we really want to, but we'll continue pushing this.
Right. So it looks like whenever there's another big release, maybe, just maybe we can look forward to some more comics, but nothing on a substantial level quite yet. This next question comes.
We have something percolating, but it's a little bit too early to comment publicly about it. Maybe in the next town halls.
Okay, so here that's a leak. That's a leak for a leak.
I mentioned it, kind of mentioned it in one of Daryl's posts last month.
So if anyone wants to go hunting, there's your clue. All right, so this next question comes from Z, and they ask, "Do we have Axie T-shirts? Where can I buy?" Everyone wants physical merch.
So yeah, we had merch. We had a merch initial version of the merch store, and this down for maintenance, I guess. But we do have plans to release more merch in the future.
Awesome. I know I'll be getting as much as I can whenever anything new launches. This one comes from Puck, and now this is a bit of a difficult question. I'm going to try to summarize it the best I can. Puck asks, "Could we make an adjustment to how the event scoring system works?
Yeah, I
Many
think
have,
we went through this briefly, right?
yeah.
About the event system in Homeland.
So they say as many have said, 2 hours every day over 2 weeks feels exhaustive. Solution. Keep 2 week duration. Oh, we did touch on this. My apologies. It's kind of similar to the other question already.
Yeah, I think we can move on from it, but
Yeah,
I think we
yeah,
we mentioned.
yeah.
I think like some system, right, where you basically are able to submit your best scores or something like that. Like it's valid. It's a potential uh, solution.
Right. It was very similar to the question Mimi's already asked. So we will just move on to this is Latso.ron. When will Homeland open for everyone, even with no land?
So yeah.
One thing we want to do with the avatar system in Homeland is that people with Axies, right, but without any land plot can join the game and at least wander around just to see. We are still thinking about how we could add like gameplay for that archetype of players in the future, right? People without any land plots. Maybe we'll review more later in the next couple or something, because right now we are still deep in the process of thinking. But
So no hard information yet. Things are still tentative and in the air.
I mean, for the avatar system is already open, right? For people with no land, I still need to confirm with the team, but at least it's on the requirements when we create the avatar
Okay.
system, right? Without land, people can join and experience Homeland. But I think it's much less meaningful if the only thing you can do is to like wander around. So
Right.
adding gameplay is one thing that I mean requires a lot more effort. But if it's technically about the openness of Homeland, right, for non-land owner, then the avatar system will like address the first step of this.
Yeah,
So yeah,
that is an important factor as well. I think for a lot of people who don't own land, when they go to click on that button and they're prevented from even getting into the client, that can feel a little discouraging, right? Especially if you're aspiring to own land one day. But if you don't own land yet, you're aspiring to buy some land and you're still able to get into the client, move around, and then even directly communicate with other players in the game who have been playing Homelands with lots of experience. That way you have someone directly you can talk to who can maybe even help you out with what plot to buy, what to look out for. That's sorry to go on a little tangent there, but yeah, that's great. I will move on to the next one from Monononodes. They write, regarding Homeland, do you have a date for the fishing mechanics? And when can we know more about the incorporation of public lands so that everyone can test the game?
Um,
Yeah, I think this is aligned with the last questions, right? About
Right, the
like
second half.
developing any kind of gameplay for the avatar, right? So instead of like the current loop of building the base on your land plot. So yeah, I think that exciting. But still in the kitchen for now. Um, I I do know that people like a lot, like many people have a special passion for fishing.
Mm.
When I was still doing some sort of speed run in Stardew Valley, fishing is also one of the things that I utilize in the very early part of the game of the run. But and then I also saw the thread from Look, right? Pixels asking about like different ideas for the fishing mechanics. I didn't have the chance to come back at it, but I took like a look after. I think people will have some very good ideas. The team is actually wants to push for the fishing mechanics. I don't know too much in details. They keep this some sort of a secret. So yeah, it's sometimes even confidential within ourselves. But I do know that the team wants to push it a bit, and I think it would be just the first version, the first iterations, and then we can iterate more after we release for you guys to try. So
There's so many fun fishing systems over time. There's like I think my first one is Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time.
Let's
Has like
go!
has a sick fishing system. Stardew Valley is also good.
Pokemon
Animal
Blue.
Crossing. Animal Crossing fishing is fun. I know people who are like obsessed with WoW fishing, even though it was like and no skill and just grinding. But I guess there's like a certain level of relaxation, right, that comes with these with fishing mechanics. So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
I think that'll
we went fishing with Alex and Andy and some others, and we didn't catch any fish in real life. So in real life, it's different.
Wait, when did you guys go fishing without me? What?
Like, yeah, it was long ago, like 2 years, something.
Well,
Yeah, I've gone fishing a few times, but I gotta say I've always had more fun fishing in video games. You don't
fishing
get
on
you don't
fishing on a small boat is hard, man.
yeah.
Most of us is not that skillful in real life.
All right, all right. This last question comes from Abra. They ask, when land items going to have utility? Um, so uh, does the team already have ideas for reworks or buffs? Appreciate the town hall. Thanks, team.
Mhm. So yeah, we'll for sure rework the buff or some of the buff. So that is expected because the homeland that we are seeing nowadays is very different compared to the original writings that we did long ago. I mean, we didn't have a lot of clue back then, but I think right now we have a lot more understanding, right? How to structure land items. I think like I mentioned in maybe the previous town hall or maybe somewhere in the Mystic Mountain, we do want to release land items in batches because releasing all of them, I mean, the effects for all of them at once is not visible. And it's also much harder to balance, let's say if you want to do something. And also by splitting the release batches, it also right. I mean, it also like increase the duration of good feelings for people. At least you have something to look out for longer. So that would be our approach. We actually wanted to do it like earlier, but then it got pushed back a little bit because of some of the critical fixes on the things that we want to deliver in the faster node. So I mean, in the next stage, right after the almost 6 months of commitment for the faster node, things like land items effects will be put into the next phase that we will prioritize, right? Analyze the priorities together with some others tasks in the bucket.
Perfect. Yeah,
Good.
it makes sense to focus on the foundation before the window dressing. So I don't think
I think
anyone.
we got some good feedback, right? Like I think we did the event right for the Lunar New Year with some integration of the land items, right? So I think that's also right testing that foundation of being able to start to think about land item utility.
Right. Well, that does finish it for our questions. Now, I want to let you all know I see a lot of questions spamming in the chat. Unfortunately, we cannot get to all of them. We do release a questionnaire form when the town halls are announced, so make sure to look out for those for the future so you can get your questions submitted. And if
Well, I think Winston, I think you can maybe have Juicepoo aggregate those questions, and then we can at least take a look and maybe respond to some important ones.
Yeah, and Shade and I will also be on XChat next week for a deep dive at the town hall and to answer some of the questions you have.
Okay.
okay,
Well,
perfect.
now we make this a frequent thing. That's on way. The next one.
Awesome.
And for
Okay.
anyone who may have gotten in late, I do want to let everyone know that there is also this stream was also on Twitch, on Facebook, on YouTube. So you should be able to find the recorded VOD on many of those alternative media sites or main media sites rather. So if there's anything that you missed out on, you can always go back and rewatch it there.
How do you see the stage chat? Oh, here.
One I keep seeing a lot is Homeland on mobile. When Homeland on mobile?
Homeland Mobile. Yeah, we learn it the hard way. So for other game teams, let's say if they want to do something to focus on the mobile version, nowadays I say to them that it's better to start like right at the start with the mobile version, right? If it's the focus for Homeland right now, right? I think we anticipate having a mobile version, and it's not too far off. But I mean, the process of going through the UX to see if there's any kind of things that we need to fix, testing the scalability, right? The performance of the game on mobile devices, especially the low end one. Is what we still need to do if we want to focus on having a mobile version right now. Some people, right, Wisdom included, just bought a ROG Ally device, and it's kind of it's like the Steam Deck, so that you can play Homeland on it. It's quite cool.
We're like the main distributor of those rogue allies. We need to get a partnership. Okay. I think so. I think that's it. So yeah, we're in Vietnam together. We're cooking in person. It's always great to visit HQ. And yeah, thanks everybody for attending. And yeah, I think it's been fun to have these monthly for for the last 2 months. So yeah, I guess we'll see you guys next month. See you in Discord. See you in Twitter.
See you guys in the next one.
Thank you, everyone, for stopping in. Until next time, we'll see you in the arena. Goodbye, everybody.